A sudden, paralyzing strike in the lower back drops a grown adult to the floor. Ask medical professionals or patients who have survived it, and they frequently compare the sheer scale of this agony to the pain of childbirth or major physical trauma. Yet there is no car crash here. There is no broken bone, and there is no massive bleeding wound to explain the debilitating symptoms. The true cause of this extreme internal torture is actually hiding deep inside the body. It is a tiny, jagged crystallization known as a kidney stone. To understand how something so incredibly small can completely incapacitate a human being, we have to shrink down and trace the brutal, microscopic journey of this jagged rock. The journey begins quietly inside the kidneys. These wide, open chambers serve as your body's master filtration system, processing liquids around the clock. The biological trigger for a stone is simple dehydration. When your water intake drops, your body's fluid levels plummet, leaving your urine highly concentrated. In this diagram, we can observe what happens in that low fluid environment. Microscopic minerals, specifically calcium and oxalate, no longer dissolve safely. Instead, they crash into each other, sticking together to form a tiny crystallized cluster. Over a timeline of weeks or months, these distinct crystals fuse layer by layer. They slowly build outward, forming a hard, jagged rock with sharp asteroid-like spikes. You feel absolutely no pain during this phase. The stone floats freely within the spacious, unconstricted chambers of the kidney, never brushing against sensitive tissue. But this silent incubation is an illusion of safety. Gravity is inevitable, and the pain begins the second this fully formed rock falls out of the open kidney and into the body's fragile plumbing. The free fall abruptly ends as gravity pulls the stone out of the kidney and drops it into the ureter, the muscular transit tube leading down to the bladder. This animation illustrates the immediate spatial conflict. The ureter is an incredibly sensitive tube that is less than 3 millimeters wide. Suddenly, a 5 millimeter rigid, jagged rock is forced inside. The dimensions simply do not work. As the stone moves downward, its sharp edges physically scrape and tear at the delicate, tightly packed nerve endings lining the inside walls of the ureter. In a desperate reaction, the body fights back. The ureter forcefully contracts in violent muscle spasms, attempting to push the foreign object downward. Instead, these inward convulsions clamp the sensitive tissue directly onto the sharp spikes of the stone. These crushing muscle spasms create a blinding, localized torture. Yet this mechanical scraping is only half of the nightmare. A secondary crisis unfolds when the jagged rock gets completely wedged inside the narrow tube, halting the entire biological transit system. The stone now acts exactly like a cork tightly sealed in a bottle. It creates a total blockage, preventing any downward flow of filtered urine. We can see the fluid dynamics failure clearly in this model. With the downward exit completely blocked, the trapped fluid has nowhere to go. It begins traveling in reverse, backing up the tube and rapidly filling the upper reservoir chamber. That reservoir is the kidney itself. The trapped liquid generates a massive internal hydrostatic pressure, causing the entire organ to dangerously stretch and inflate against its own walls. This massive, unnatural ballooning of the kidney is the actual mechanism behind the deep, paralyzing, throbbing back pain that drops patients to the floor. Inside the ureter, the body's relentless struggle continues. The agonizing pressure and continuous muscle spasms slowly force the stone down to the very end of the narrow transit tunnel. The release finally happens in a fraction of a second. The stone violently pops out of the constricted ureter and drops freely into the large, open cavern of the bladder. The biological cork is immediately removed. The internal pressure equalizes in an instant, and the trapped, backed-up fluid rapidly rushes out of the system. As the pressure normalizes, the agonizing systemic swelling vanishes. The localized tearing stops. The extreme pain disappears almost like magic, and the rest of the stone's journey out of the body is surprisingly painless. The human body can recover from intense trauma, but the fact that a microscopic rock can completely shut down an adult is a brutal, unforgettable biological reminder to constantly drink water and